With school bells about to ring again, we're talking education with the Chancellor and then casinos. The Point starts right now. Summer vacation is almost over for nearly 1 million students. Chancellor Marcia Aviles-Ramos is here with something to celebrate.
Yes!
And we are celebrating.
Our new test scores came in, huge increases for New York City public schools.
So first we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about New York reads. Reading scores are up.
Yes, they are.
Tell me about it. How big an increase?
So 7.2 percentage point increase across the entire school district, which is huge because, you know, we have 1,600 schools, nearly 1 million students, and to see that kind of gain after rolling out New York City Reads for 2 years is really just incredible.
But let's explain to our viewers like what that means, how you changed the curriculum and so people are reading differently. Explain that.
Absolutely. So this started 2 years ago under my predecessor, Chancellor David Banks, and I was his chief of staff. So a team of us worked closely with him to launch what we call New York City Reads. And this was a shift in curriculum that is rooted in the science of reading. So there was a time where teachers were doing whole language instruction. They weren't really using a phonics-based approach to reading.
This is phonics-based?
Yes, it is.
Easier for kids to learn?
Yes. And learning how syllables work and learning about phonemes and things that we stopped teaching in school for a while. So this was really important. And on top of that, teachers were also receiving coaching and support to implement these curricula in the schools.
But we're not just celebrating New York Reads, we're celebrating New York Solves.
NYC Solves,
which
yes.
is?
It's our math sister initiative to go with NYC Reads, which is super exciting too. And that launch was a little bit rockier. We did receive some pushback initially, but Michael Mulgrew has been such a great partner, and we immediately went into schools and heard from teachers, and we pulled together some of the best math teachers across New York City, and they helped us make adjustments to the curriculum, and as a result, we're now seeing both very successful.
So I need to ask you, the scores are up a lot in white students and Asian students, but not so much among minority students. What's going on there, and what new programs are you going to do to try to help them?
Absolutely, and that's such an important question. So I do want to note, though, that our Black and Latina students made huge increases, more than any other population. In fact, our Black students outperformed all the other student population groups, over 8%, over 8 percentage point increase. That being said, less than 50% are still reading at proficient or better, which is unacceptable. So as I've told my team, yes, this is a moment for celebration, but it's definitely not a moment to rest. One of the things that I've been talking a lot about is how we are supporting students at the intervention phase. So let's say you're sitting in class, and even though the teacher is teaching, you might not be getting it. We sometimes pull students out of class and give them tutoring. We have to pay attention at what's going on in that instructional moment just as much as what's happening in the regular classroom. So we're doing a lot of that work this year, and we expect to see even better results.
Are we talking also about remedial classes after school, or you think you can do it within the school day?
So we actually are really paying attention to pilots where it happens in the actual school day and classroom. We want to make sure that kids are not being pulled out for subpar instruction, but after school tutoring isn't a bad thing either. But, you know, working with our teachers and even with our nonprofit organizations and CBOs that support kids, making sure that they understand what we're doing is important too.
So another big change for the school system is going to be a mandatory bell-to-bell cell phone ban. I wonder, you know, what's the biggest challenge that you're going to face? You have so many schools,
yep.
so many students, so many different ages. What are you going to do?
Yeah, well, so this is new to some of our schools, but not all of our schools, because prior to the state mandate, we had over half of our schools already restricting cell phones. I was a principal, and I restricted cell phones in my school. I used the collection method. There are 3 different kinds of methods that schools can use. They can use the magnetic pouch, they can collect them, or they can store them in lockers. So really the first step was to adjust our chancellor's regulation that supports that work. We've surveyed the schools where this is new, and we're working really closely with them to make sure that they're ready for the first day of school.
But what are you doing to appease parents that are worried? I mean, there's some schools I know around the state are thinking of having a cell phone that they can't get on the internet. Are we going to do anything like that in New York? I mean, how are you going to make parents feel like everything's okay?
Yeah, well, this is the reason why Mayor Adams and I wanted to kind of pause on rolling this out last year, because we wanted to engage with families and we wanted to make sure that we had our stuff together in place. So what does that mean? That means making sure that if someone calls their child's school, that someone's going to pick up, that if there's an emergency, they can reach someone and let them know, that the school has a clear system for communication with families. Our Gamma system, they can immediately send information and messages to families in multiple languages. So we wanted to perfect that before we started restricting cell phone use.
So do you think that parents are now appeased and are going to be happy with the system that you're going to roll out starting in September?
I think that eventually parents will see the benefit.
So in the beginning, you're going to get some
In the beginning,
calls.
I'm sure we'll get some pushback. You know, I've had conversations with parents already. I think it makes many of them, once they talk to me directly, which I do all the time, and tell them, hey, I restricted cell phone use and it worked and it's fine. And so they trust us.
So let me ask you another question. You know, the past couple of weeks, a number of students, one in particular was involved this week, have been arrested by ICE agents when they went, not in schools, but they went to the regularly scheduled appointments in courts, and they were arrested and taken into custody.
Yeah.
How big a problem is that for you, and what are you telling your students to do? Are you telling them not to go to court? Are you telling them you have to go to court, especially if they face the possibility of being arrested?
Yeah, you know, I'm sure you know, Marcia, that I started my time at the central office at leading and launching Project Open Arms, which was the multi-agency effort to support our newest New Yorkers. So this is something that's very near and dear and personal to me. We have amped up the number of Know Your Rights trainings for our families, Know Their Rights training for our parent coordinators, for our parent leaders, for our principals and our teachers, because we think that's so important. The other thing is we have great partners in our elected officials and in our advocates, as well as groups like Project Rousseau that are connecting families to legal services. Moya has been a tremendous partner. So we are working with families on a case-by-case basis and getting them the resources. We keep telling families, send your children to school. Schools are safe places. And by staying connected in that larger ecosystem with elected officials and with advocates and with families, we're confident that we're going to weather the storm together.
But a lot of these arrests, in fact, all of them that I've covered, have happened when they've gone to court. They're not coming into the schools, at least yet, but they are going to court. So are you giving students and parents any advice about whether they should actually keep their court appointments?
Well, in our trainings, we talk to them about knowing their rights and what does that look like regardless of the setting.
So another question that's sort of come up has to do with mayoral control of the schools. I know Mayor Adams is a strong proponent of mayoral control, but some of the candidates who are running for mayor say maybe there should be some pullback. I wonder how you feel about that and whether these parent panels should be given more power.
You know, I have a really close relationship, or I like to think that I do, with our parent leaders. I've invested a lot in working with our panel for educational policy. They are tremendous partners, and people want to feel heard. They want to feel respected. I will say that through mayoral control, we were able to launch New York City Reads and Solves, which is proving successful. That would be very difficult to do in a decentralized system. But I think that what's most important is to really build those relationships with stakeholders so they feel heard, regardless of whether it's mayoral control or not.
But if you had the ability to talk to any of these mayoral candidates who are going to say, maybe we shouldn't have so much mayoral control, where would you come down on that? What would you say to them? You
know, I would say to them that it's important to relationship build and to make sure that every stakeholder feels heard and seen, and that even if you don't have mayoral control, that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone feels heard. And so I think it's not a flaw in either of the structures, but maybe in how we're implementing.
Well, you don't want to see more the local school boards come back.
It would definitely be interesting to see local boards come back.
Yeah. We're going to have to leave it right there for now. But up next, Senator Brad Hoylman-Sigal, who just won a Democratic primary in the Manhattan Borough President's race. Senator Brad Hoylman-Sigal is a Democratic candidate for Manhattan Borough President, and if you win in November, you would be the first openly gay borough president in Manhattan in the history of the city. That's a big deal, especially with what's happening in Washington, and I wonder what that means to you.
Well, I take it very personally and professionally because, as you mentioned, Marcia, in Washington there are attempts to really curb the human rights of the LGBTQ population, whether it's attacks on transgender youth, which are really scurrilous in my opinion, because these are the most vulnerable young people in our society today, where we've seen rates of suicide ideation skyrocketing, in addition to hate crimes, of course, but also due to the fact that, you know, now there are some states that are even questioning my marriage and my ability to have children.
How does that make you feel? I mean, you have 2 children, you've had a long-time marriage. How does it make you feel that they're trying to make it, you feel that that's not acceptable?
Well, part of it is painful, but part of it really fires me up and, you know, wants to do this job with all the vigor that I have, because, you know, I think as an openly LGBTQ elected official, I think I have a responsibility for the next generation of young people who want to serve the public, just as I aspire to do.
So what kind of a message are you trying to send to people about what you can accomplish in this job for your community?
Well, what I heard from voters during the election, which is what the mayoral candidates and every candidate for office heard, city council and otherwise, is that affordability is one of the top issues that we have to address, and that's deeply, deeply tied into housing. Look, more than 1/2 of renters in New York City are burdened, meaning they pay more than 30% of their income on rent. We have to address that problem head on, but in addition to that, quality of life.
Before we get to quality of life, let's talk about housing and whether you think a rent freeze is the way to go.
Well, a rent freeze is, in my opinion, has to be on the table. I strongly support it. And, you know, that'll be up to the next mayor and his appointees to determine. But we've seen that rents are skyrocketing. Look, in my district, the number of constituents who had to move out of New York City because they were being charged increases 30, 40, 50%. Now, we did pass a bill in Albany called Good Cause Eviction, and that's going to help those who are non-regulated. And I hope my office can take a big role in making certain that renters know their rights. And I want to organize tenants in that regard.
But also there's the landlord side of it, and I've interviewed a number of smaller landlords who say they have, you know, buildings that have maybe 10 apartments, 12 apartments, 15 apartments, and they say they can't afford a rent freeze. So how is there a way to do like a 2-tier system so you can take care of the small property owners who may have legitimate questions?
I agree that small landlords are small business owners and have a lot of struggles that, you know, haven't been well publicized. One of the things I want to do is to have in my office a small business navigator to help them comply with a lot of regulations that are coming out of City Hall, well-meaning, but need to be certainly understood in the terms of the small landlord.
Well, especially since, you know, you have rising costs of power, electricity, gas, etc., that they're being asked to carry, and also rising real estate taxes. So, you know, is it fair to lump all landlords into the same great big box?
No, it's not. And, you know, the landlords I often talk about are the nameless, faceless landlords, private equity firms, LLC, limited liability companies. We passed a law that hopefully will bring some transparency to those hidden landlords that often impose inordinate costs on our New York City residents.
So we also have a situation where another big issue is, dare I say it, casinos. There are 2 possibilities for casinos that have been proposed here in Manhattan, one in Times Square, one called the Avenir, which is sort of near, I guess, the Javits Center. You don't like casinos.
I'm not a casino candidate, never have been. I made that very clear. I said during my campaign, if you want a casino in Manhattan, don't vote for Brad Hoylman-Sigal. And I stand by that statement. There's also an East Side casino proposal, by the way.
That's right.
Look, I heard from voters that quality of life is one of their top concerns. If you want to exacerbate the problem of quality of life in a neighborhood, drop a casino in the middle of that. Crime, traffic, addiction. Casinos feed on all of those societal problems. Look, I'm not saying that some communities don't want them. And we've seen in different parts of the city that some may, and that's why we have the Community Advisory Council set up that can effectively check the casinos and the developers and ensure that there's community participation in where a casino is sited.
So right now you are still a state senator, and you do know that there's a policy of bringing 3 downstate casinos to this area. I mean, the popular wisdom, obviously it has to be decided, but the popular wisdom is that one would go to Yonkers because they already have a racino, and one to Aqueduct, which also has a racino. That leaves one more to go someplace in the downstate area. I wouldn't say the 5 boroughs, but downstate. So where do you see that going? I mean, when you talk about the proposal in Coney Island, people don't want it. You talk about some proposals in Queens, people don't want it, although, you know, there's one at Citi Field, but, you know, like, would you put 2 casinos in Queens? So where can you find space for this casino? I mean, it's a moneymaker for the state. I think it brings in like $500 million a year, each casino.
Yeah.
So isn't there a reason to do these casinos someplace?
Well, there is. I mean, it is certainly in my opinion, a kind of short-sighted way to raise revenue for the state, because look at the other side. Again, the problems that casinos bring to neighborhoods are legion. They're well documented, and those cost the public purse a lot of money too. That said, if a community strongly embraces a casino in another borough, more power to them. I think the one in Citi Field has a very good shot. After all, we amended statute in Albany to allow that casino to go forward. So I would think that one of those casinos has a much better shot than Manhattan. Last night, the theater owners in Times Square,
they don't want it.
They all lit up their marquees saying no casino in Times Square. That is a powerful message.
So but the reason I'm asking about the casinos is because they can bring in a lot of money.
Yep.
And the reason why the state needs a lot of money is because of the cuts from Washington. So there's been a reason, you know, the mayoral candidate, the one you're backing, in fact, has proposed increasing taxes on billionaires and rich people. But the thing about it is that the cuts from Washington are going to be big. So don't you need some kind of way to bring money in that doesn't involve, you know, taxes on people?
Absolutely.
Because, you know, there's a fear, and the governor says this. She says that there's a fear about migration, and if you know, the more taxes, the more people are likely to be leaving the state, which means, by the way, fewer Congress seats.
Fewer Congress seats, a lower tax base. Look, we should embrace the opportunity to have everyone contribute to services in the city. That's why it's expensive to live here. That's why taxes are expensive, because we have great societal needs. We have a social safety net that is frayed already, and look, we're looking at a $10.3 billion city deficit combined with the $10.5 billion state deficit by 2027, according to the state controller. So we do need new revenue streams. I'm not saying that income taxes are the only thing that we should be looking at. Look, there's a proposal to socialize title insurance and have that state run. Could bring in hundreds of millions of dollars a year. We could tax digital advertising, as other states have done. Could bring in hundreds of millions of dollars a year. There are a lot of proposals out there.
We'll have to leave it right there for now, but we'll be right back. Thank you for joining me. The Trump administration wants to unleash American drone dominance so America, not China, can take a commanding lead with this new technology. How do New Yorkers feel about more drones in the sky? They're weighing in on your point. How do you feel about the use of drones in New York City? Not good.
I don't really see them.
I think you're going to see drones. In the next 5 years, they're going to be everywhere.
Big Brother's coming, and I don't love it.
It's weird.
It's kind of somewhat invasive.
Drones, I think it's dangerous.
It can be a little concerning at times.
In what way?
Just, you don't know who's flying them, so you don't know how skilled they are at maneuvering them.
Cool. Keep it going.
I support it as long as it's not interfering with any sort of activities, because the city's skyline's beautiful.
What do you think they should be used for?
Oh, I don't know. I guess for safety?
Maybe crime prevention, crime detection.
They're obviously weapons.
Looking at like dangerous situations coming from maybe miles away, possibly, and then alerting the people in New York City about it.
Surveillance. That's becoming a big thing in New York. The NYPD is using it for surveillance, for fires. It can be very, very helpful, things like that.
Cinematic footage, content for online.
As far as I'm concerned, snitching on people, but also deliveries.
Deliveries. Amazon deliveries.
I work for a scaffolding company, and so I've learned that they can be used for facade work to look for cracks and things in buildings.
They have multiple uses, and whether we like them or not, they're there.
So what concerns you about the use of drones?
Probably the unconstitutional, unnecessary surveillance of people.
The ability to control something without being in the space is just a lot of power.
The politicians who misuse them.
Radiation.
I don't know, just the fact of being watched without me really saying, you can watch me, you know what I mean?
The unreliability of it, getting it into the hands of bad actors.
People are going to use it to spy on the people when they don't want to, like a peeping Tom or something.
I never seen the drone do anything good, so it's like, gotta be something bad.
If someone is not skilled in flying them, that they could pose hazards to damaging buildings, hurting people.
Well, in civilian use, they're just not regulated. That's a problem for air traffic and for people.
There's like so many problems that could be fixed with already existing technology. I just don't really see, I don't know, magic fixes like switch things to the sky and it's going to be better. I don't know.
It reminds you of those futuristic dystopian societies where everything's surveilled and monitored, and I think there's real concern about what that looks like in the future.